Rice, rice, baby to go. Rice, rice, baby to go. So back when I was in culinary school, we were cooking rice one day and something strange happened. A lot of my fellow students, they didn't get it. And just to be clear, this is rice we're talking about. You know, just like basic rice. I thought everybody knew how to cook rice, but my fellow aspiring chefs, a lot of them were having difficulty. Either they didn't get the water to rice ratio right, or they were stirring too much, and it got me thinking. If a lot of aspiring chefs have trouble making rice, then, maybe home cooks do too. Well, today, I'm going to show you how to cook rice in 20 minutes. And not just rice, but perfect rice. So believe it or not, white rice actually has special meaning for me in cooking that for dogs. And the reason is, white rice is actually what got me started on the journey of cooking food for dogs. It must have been like 10 years ago. And the way it all came about is that our dog, Parbar, he was having like stomach issues and just some different intestinal issues. And I won't get into the details, but if you've ever had a dog who's been sick, well, you can probably feel them in yourself. So we took Parbar to the vet, and that night our vet told us, she said, just cook him some white rice and that should help settle his stomach. So I did that. I made some rice. We waited until it got to about lukewarm, and we just served him that, and he went bananas. He loved it. I had never seen him eat like that before. He was just scarfing it down. And the vet was right. His stomach issues went away, and I thought, wow, this is really something else. So what I started doing was adding rice to his kibble. We were serving him kibble at the time, and it really helped stretch our food dollar because we were adding it, and it also seemed to help him, and he really, really enjoyed it. So let's fast forward years, and what I started doing was I started making brown rice for the dogs. I started making all sorts of things, but it was white rice that really showed, hey, you can make human food for dogs that they really enjoy and that can stretch their meals and that they just love. Now there is a caveat with rice, and it is that it's, of course, not all that nutritious. You don't want to be feeding just white rice to your dogs, just like you wouldn't want to be eating only white rice or white bread for that matter. White rice, though, is a really good food to cook that kind of introduces your dog to human food. And it's rice. I mean, this isn't rocket science. And what human doesn't like rice? I mean, I love the stuff too. If you've never made homemade food for your dog, white rice is an awesome place to start because it's easy, it's easily digestible, and guess what? You can have some too. Just put some like teriyaki sauce on it, add some chicken, add some vegetables, and suddenly you're enjoying, let's say, a teriyaki bowl while your dog is enjoying rice added to their meal. So if you've only ever cooked white rice from, let's say, a bag or instant rice, I'm going to show you that it's super, super easy to cook. Like literally, if you can boil water, you can make rice. So let's do that now. So what I'm working with is just some basic white rice. This is jasmine rice. You can use any kind of white rice you have or anything that you see at the store, long grain, short grain. I would stay away from arborio rice. That's kind of a whole nother thing. That's what you make risotto out of. And maybe someday we'll make risotto for pups as well. But for today, we're just going to keep it simple, and we're going to make white rice for dogs. So here's our starting lineup. We've got 4 things here. And you know what? Technically, you don't even need 2 of these. The most important are, well, the rice and the water. We've got 2 cups of rice and 3.5 cups of water. Now, there's a little salt shaker here, and I like to add salt because that just brings out whatever flavor the rice has, which of course isn't much, so it helps. And some rice wine vinegar. That's going to add just a little bit of punch, but it's also going to help keep the rice from sticking. Now, remember, you're probably going to be eating some of this rice too, so you don't want it to be totally bland. But since it's for dogs, you also don't want it to be super duper seasoned. Now you may be thinking, well, what about a rice cooker like this one or an Instant Pot? Yeah, you know, making rice in these is super easy, and I've got some videos planned for making not only ways to make rice, but also make other meals in these. But if you don't have one of these, or you don't want to spend the extra cost of getting one, making rice on the stove is super easy because all you're really doing is using a pot that you probably already have. And truth be told, making rice on the stove is actually faster than either of these methods, and I have timed it. So the first thing I've done is I've put my 2 cups of white rice in a colander. And remember the chicken livers? We used the same colander. Yes, we washed it out well. But what we're going to do here is just like with the chicken livers in the first video, we are going to rinse the rice. And by rinsing the rice, that just kind of helps get rid of some of that excess starch, and thus helps the rice to not be so sticky, because nobody likes sticky rice, right? So I'm going to rinse the rice pretty well, maybe for 30 seconds or a minute. And pro tip, just kind of swirl your hand around, and that's going to help kind of shuffle it, move that starch around, and get all that starch off of it. Now again, you really don't have to do all this. If you don't have a colander and say all you got is a pot and rice and water, you can cook rice. But this method is going to help you make perfect rice. Okay, real quick, let's talk about pan selection. As always, for this one, I am just using a basic pot. This is about 3 quarts. This will be perfect, nice solid base. If you have something like this, it's going to work. The one thing you do want to make sure you have is a lid, because that's what rice requires, is a lid. If you have a lid that is glass, that is going to be even better, because that's going to help you monitor the rice. You're not always going to be lifting the lid and checking on your rice. The reason it's bad to be lifting the lid constantly is because it lets all that heat escape. That's a bad thing. It slows the cooking process and it makes angry rice. We want happy rice. So use a glass lid if you have it, and have happy rice. Great, so let's get cooking, shall we? First thing you want to do is heat your pan on high and pour in your 3.5 cups of water. Put a lid on it and wait for it to boil. This is going to take anywhere from, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the pan you're using, the range you're using, yada yada yada. But remember, we got a glass lid, so we can just peer into it, wait for it to boil. While we're waiting for the water to come up to a boil, let's talk real quickly about the water. I like to use filtered water. This is like a knockoff Brita or something that I got from Target. Of course, you don't have to. You can use tap water or whatnot. But using filtered, well, my dogs are worth it. I'm worth it. And so are your dogs, and so are you. So, hey, if you got filtered water, use it. Now, you might also be thinking, couldn't you use something else besides water? Couldn't you use like a type of broth? Absolutely you could. You could use chicken broth, you could use beef broth, vegetable broth, you name it. But again, if you've never cooked rice before, let's not have all those variables thrown in. We'll get to those, don't worry. For now, we are just going to learn how to cook basic white rice, perfect rice, and for that we are just going to use water. Okay, by my watch it's been just over 8 minutes and the water is boiling. Now we are going to put in the rice. So if it's still in the strainer, carefully position it over and just kind of dump that rice in. And I shouldn't have to say be careful, it's hot. Now, if that's all you have, great. You don't have to add extra. But again, I like to add a little bit of salt, not too much, but just a little bit of salt, and we'll say maybe about a tablespoon of rice wine vinegar. You could also use just regular white vinegar, distilled vinegar if that's what you have, and again, that's going to help the rice to not get clumpy. Now, I think it's at this point that a lot of my aspiring chefs that I told you about earlier messed things up. They were stirring and they were doing who knows what. Here's all you need to do. We're just going to stir it once. We're just going to make sure that the rice and the vinegar are incorporated, and that's it. Put the spoon down. We're not making risotto here where you just be cranking over that thing. All we're going to do is let the water come back up to a boil. So that's going to take, another couple minutes, because when you put the rice in the water, the rice absorbs the heat of the water, so it has to come back up to the boil. But it comes up really quick. Now, there is another method of cooking rice. Some people like to add the rice and the water and bring it to a boil together. You can absolutely do that. I just kind of prefer doing this. I think it's a little less clumpy, but hey, if that's kind of the way you were taught, or that's what you feel more comfortable with, awesome. Okay, so our rice is almost back up to a boil. You don't really have to wait for it to get to like a rolling boil or anything. Just make sure it's a boil like this, and this is what it looks like where you've got bubbles really, it's called energetically breaking the surface. That was like the real definition that we used back in culinary school. So there you go. Okay, so here's the important part. When it gets back to a boil, put the lid on, turn the heat to low. There you go. Now it's just a waiting game. This could take another 10 minutes, and then we'd have about 20 minutes exactly. That's usually what it takes for me, is about 20 minutes dead on. Look, you may be cooking at a different altitude, your pan might be different, it could take a little less time, it could take more, don't worry about it. But just kind of monitor the rice, and again, if you have a glass lid, that's great, but if you don't, that's fine too. I wouldn't even start checking the rice until maybe the 17 or 18 minute mark. You are timing things, right? It has been just over 20 minutes and we are so close, I can feel it. So here's how to determine when the rice is done. Yes, you can take the lid off. So take the lid off. Oh my gosh, look at that. Take a spoon and just kind of go down in there. And if there's water left at the bottom, let it cook a little bit more. But otherwise, you have just made rice. So what we're going to do is we are just going to kind of fluff this a bit. We'll turn our heat off, and we will actually put the lid back on. And that is just going to kind of let it steam once more, kind of get those last few gasps of moisture out. But here it is. Perfect white rice in 20 minutes. Now, from here, you can do anything and almost everything with it. You can make a teriyaki bowl for yourself while putting it over kibble for your dog. or just kind of maybe settling their stomach if they're having some issues. But again, white rice is a really great introduction of human food to dogs. That's going to get them used to eating human food, and it's going to make you as the human owner used to actually cooking, home cooking for your dog. And I can't think of a better way to start than white rice. So here it is, perfect white rice in 20 minutes. And I can guarantee that both you and your dogs are going to absolutely love this. Thank you for watching. I'm the Dog Chow Chef. You know the usual thing here on YouTube. Please like, please subscribe, yada yada. I think what we're going to do now is make a plate of this, and once it cools to lukewarm, we're going to make a plate for the dogs. We're going to serve this maybe with some beef, some carrots. I think they're really going to enjoy it. And then for me, I don't know, maybe I'll do like a bowl, fried rice. I don't know. Who knows? Thanks for watching.